It seems like an absolute age since we were last out doing one of these little sort of diary pieces. Obviously, as you all know, with lockdown and stuff, matches have been on and off, so I've not really found anything to get my teeth into, which has been part of the reason I've not really done one of these catch-ups. I know last time we were out, we were down at Birchhouse Lakes catching loads of skimmers and stuff shallow. Unfortunately, they've stopped running in the open matches at the moment, so it was a case of finding something new. And over winter, I always like to try and find a winter league to get on, as it sort of forces you to get out, even when it's a bit miserable weather where it would probably be easier to stop in bed. So we're down here at Bonehill Mill. So anyone that's on the members channel will have seen Jamie was down here on one of the other lakes doing a live match. It's probably sort of July, August time. That one's full of big carp, but there's also a decent amount of skimmers in here. And we've come down for a quick practice because we're on one of the tucked away lakes, a little donut sort of lake. I've got the second round of the Winter League here on Sunday, and to be totally honest, it's going to be a little bit tricky. I think sort of £2-3 pound, you'll probably be top 2, top 3 in section, so it's going to be a tough old match. And we thought we'd just come down and have a bit of a play, see if we could work anything out, but at the moment we're struggling to get a bite. So first round of the Winter Leagues was all right. We were on the Middle Lake Club Pool, for anyone that knows it. It was a last weekend before lockdown 2.0, and if anyone else was out, it was absolutely blowing a gale. It was horrible conditions. If it wasn't a league, I definitely wouldn't have been here, I definitely wouldn't have been fishing, but obviously you're booked on, you've got to make the most of it. And I've drawn on the bank between the two lakes, which is an area that's not normally in, so I don't think it's normally a great area for silvers, but it was still quite mild, which was a problem. So everyone's had issues with carp. I've caught plenty of them myself, but we've ended up just having a nice little day, chucking a feeder about, dead patient fishing. You might be waiting sort of 10 minutes for a bite, but eventually it'll go round occasionally. You get little runs of 2 or 3 fish, and they were decent enough skimmers, are worth catching, and they were a lot bigger fish than people were catching on the pole. I've ended up with a load of carp, and I think it was probably eight pounder skimmers, something like that, which was enough for second in section. So not mega start, but not a disaster. So we've got plenty of rounds to go. Hopefully we'll go one better this weekend if we can draw on a few fish, but it's going to be tricky by the looks of it. While we're here, I thought we'd go through a couple of sort of little tips that might be a little bit different to what you've seen elsewhere, probably more going down the route of sort of saving time on prep, minimising the amount you have to do while still being able to fish efficiently. Because anyone that knows us absolutely hate prep. I'll do as little of it as possible. If I can use pre-tied up length, I'll use pre-tied up length. It's about, for me, doing as little as possible while still fishing efficiently. So the first of the little tips is sort of a different way of doing expanders, and I'm sure you've all seen thousands of different videos of people either doing them in little bags or pumping them. That seems to be the two methods that everyone does, or obviously you've got stuff like the Sonu pellets that sink straight out of the bag, so you don't need to pump. But whilst I was at Spotted Fin, I was playing about with different liquids, different additives, and I've sort of stumbled on this method by accident. So what this method gives you, it gives you a pellet that stays a bit firmer, so obviously if you're going to miss a few bites, you're not shipping back and forwards all the time. It stays a lot smaller as well, which obviously for this time of year, if you're using a 4mm expander, you want it to stay at 4mm. A lot of them now, if you leave them in water, they have the tendency to go kind of 6mm or even bigger. And also it gives you a pellet that sinks without having to pump it. So it's one of those methods that you can just do it, leave it overnight, and it's done when you come to it in the morning. And because of the liquid we're using, it actually lasts a lot longer. I've got tubs about that are sort of 2-3 weeks old, and they're still more than good enough to use, and that all comes down to the actual liquid that you use to do it. So that is what you need, glycerin. So anyone that doesn't know, if you look at any of the sort of bait dips and glugs about, they're either going to be oil or glycerin based. It's one of the two. Generally, the ones that are kind of geared more towards the colder months will use glycerin, because that doesn't get affected by the cold. If you put oil in the fridge, you see it goes all like lumpy and horrible, and no good for like dispersing into the water. This stuff in the colder weather, it's going to be fine, disperses, and it acts as a bit of preservative. They use it in different, I think they use it in human stuff as well as bait. but that's what's going to actually preserve your pellet. Something like that is cheap as chips. That's like a litre, I think it was about a tenner. I've probably had that for 2 winters now, and it's only half empty. You're not using a lot of it, so it's a nice cheap way of doing it. To prepare the expanders, just to quickly show you, these little tubs, the ones you get all your sort of wafters and stuff like that in, always worth saving them because they're ideal for doing it in. So all you need to do, with your glycerin, you're sort of looking to go 50-50 with it with water. It's really weird. If you just put your expanders in this, it sort of suspends them. You can soak them in this as long as possible, but they won't take any of it on. They'll stay hard. It's really weird. But if you add just enough water to sort of loosen that off, so that's probably just about, see, it's 50-50 on there, and it's then just give it a little swirl round on there, and you can see that glycerin starts to sort of break down, and you end up with sort of a thick water is probably the best way to describe it. So then it's simply a case of putting a little handful of pellets in. Probably done way too many there, but they'll do for the weekend. Give them a little squish down, and then lid on, give them a shake round, make sure it's all mixed in, and they'll float at the moment. But leave them overnight, leave them a day or so, leave them in the fridge somewhere cool, or this time of year just leave them in the garage, and you'll come to them next morning. I'll put some pictures up on screen just to show you now, but you've got a nice firm swelled up pellet that's more than soft enough to get your hook through, but it's sort of stayed the perfect size. It's a little bit firmer, so you can get away with the odd misbite with the pellet not coming off. You don't get them splitting, and for me it's just a far easier way of doing your pellets. You can do them, forget about them, and you've got the benefit that anything you don't use, the next day they're fine, even the next week they're going to be fine. So it sort of preserves them, makes them behave a lot better, and just a really nice way of doing expanders. So well worth checking out. Just get a little tub of glycerin. You can either get it like that, where it's just the glycerin on its own, or a lot of the flavours, as I say, they're going to be, that's a glycerin base with different like additives and colours added to it. Something like that with the greening, that'll dye the pellets as well, so you get 2 in 1, bit more flavour. But recently I've just been using the glycerin on its own. Continuing on this theme of sort of time saving, prep saving, the next thing is going to be a little tweak I've been doing to my kind of cage feeder rig. Basically, a couple of lakes on a bit bigger, so there is a fair bit of feeder fishing involved, and to be totally honest, it's not something I do loads of, so prep wise it can be a bit of a pain in the arse. Your longer hook lengths, I don't really have loads of them done, so this was sort of playing about with, it was a kind of tweak to a presentation James Dent showed us a few years ago. They were using sort of the booms of fluorocarbon to help kick it out, and basically it means you can use your standard sort of 6-inch hook length that you're going to have tied ready for the pole. So just to quickly talk you through it, obviously top end is pretty standard stuff, so you've got feeder running on the main line, down to a twizzle boom there that's a couple of inches long to help kick everything out. Float stop above that just to act as a bit of a buffer, little feeder. So nothing too different there. So obviously you've got your loop on the end of there, and the hook length is where it changes. The top sort of 8 to 10 inches there, that's the 020 fluorocarbon, that's the guru stuff. And for me, doing it like this, you basically start with your twizzle boom, which is your stiffest bit, then your fluorocarbon, and then onto your hook length. So it really doesn't tend to tangle at all, because you've got, it almost acts like a tapered leader, the sort of thing that you'd be using if you were fly fishing. So all kicks out nicely, and then on the end of that fluorocarbon section, we've got one of the little kind of quick changey sort of swivels, the tiniest ones you can get, so it's not adding too much weight to it or anything like that. You could technically do it just loop to loop on there, but I've just found with those quick change swivels, it's steady as you can play about with hook length, strength, and if you get snapped off, your hook goes blunt, it's dead easy just to switch that over straight away. And obviously if you want to change the length of your hook length, keep that 6-inch bit the same, and you can just change the length of that fluorocarbon on there. It means you've got one rig that can sort of do anything you want it to. And for me, the biggest thing is you can have a nice selection of hook lengths that you're going to be using on the pole as well, and you can utilise them on the feeder. So for me, it just cuts down a load of prep. And if anything, I'm liking the fact that it all kicks itself out, less tangles and everything on there. The little bit of weight from the swivel probably helps to pin the hook length down, so probably coming from a carpy background, that's never a bad thing. But yeah, it's just one of those little tweaks to a rig that everyone probably uses. Just by using that little swivel, adds a little bit more versatility into it and reduces the amount of prep. Strength wise, we were hooking kind of 8–10 pound carp and dragging them in, and no problems with them straightening out, so nothing to worry about on that side of things. But just one of those little things that makes life a bit easier, less prep, which is always a good thing. So hopefully there's something there that might make your life a little bit easier too.